Hey, what's up, guys? It's your Lost Boy Rufio. Welcome back, and today we have got another story time for Paramedic Stories for you guys. And just a little heads up, this fight here, these are going to be some of our cosplay Fight Club stuff that we were doing. I just did a few 1v1s with you guys. I think this is one of those on PC. For those of you who don't know, we do cosplay Fight Clubs all the time. We do them on all systems, Xbox One, PS4, and PC. And we have a lot of fun. They're beautiful. I love the Untrue Darkring and just the way that Dark Souls 3 runs. It's just so beautiful looking at these wonderful cosplays. So you should come check out my live stream if you haven't already. Information's down at the bottom. So really quickly, let's get into it. The paramedic stories, for those again who don't know, I'd like to share stories from my 911 calls that we get. Some of them are pretty interesting. Some of them are pretty crazy, and some are pretty funny and gross and disgusting. But yeah, I like to share them. So we've got quite a lot of stories to go through. I don't know if I'll be able to get through them all throughout this video, but we'll try and let's just go ahead and get started. So the first one I want to talk about is a 30-year-old female. She was a psych patient, absolutely crazy. This is like at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's pitch black at night, and we get called for the psych patient. And so what happened was police called us to come do a medical evaluation on her. We usually do that for all psychotic patients. We have to go check them out medically, make sure they're clear, and take them to the hospital depending on their condition. And this lady, she decided to take a bunch of drugs and try and climb outside the window. And so police found her dangling from the window. Half her body was just hanging outside the window, just about to fall. And they were able to stop her from falling or jump. I don't know if it was like trying to suicide. I don't know what her deal was. She was so out of it. She was just saying all these crazy things, talking about all these random things. Just I don't know what she was on, but she was on a ton of drugs, and it was pretty crazy. So those kind of calls are always fun in the middle of the night. The next call I want to share about was a 52-year-old male that was involved in a bicycle crash. He was out mountain biking in our mountains up here in Utah. We've got a lot of beautiful trails to go up and do a lot of mountain biking. This guy was way, way, way up high, and he was going downhill so fast, and he went around a corner, lost control, and flew over his bike and landed on rocks and gravel and on the trail, and it was pretty crazy. I felt really bad for him. So this happened about like 6 o'clock in the morning. This guy, he was all by himself. So he had nobody to call. He had no cell reception. And so he made it all the way down the entire trail and made it to the hospital. Guess what his injuries were? He had three broken ribs, a broken scapula, and a pneumothorax. For those of you who don't know what that means, it's kind of like a hole in your lungs. He basically had a collapsed lung or a collapsing lung, and he made it all the way down the trail with a collapsing lung, a hole in his lung, it's a pneumothorax, and with multiple broken ribs and a broken scapula. That's got to be so painful. I don't know how he did it. He had bruises, cuts all over his on the side of his body. Like, he was beat up bad. This guy was 52 years old. He was in very good shape, though. When I first met him, I thought he was like 35, 40 years old, but he's 52, great shape. Made it all the way down. It took him about 3 hours to get to the hospital on his own, and then we ended up having to take him into the trauma center because he was a full trauma. I mean, he had multiple broken ribs and his lung collapsing. Like, that was some serious stuff. So that was a pretty crazy story. Next story was a 73-year-old female that was involved in a motor vehicle accident, and she kind of had the same injuries, pretty close. She had a few broken ribs. I think she had the fourth and fifth broken rib on her right side. No, hers was on her left side. It had a broken clavicle, so it wasn't the back end. It was actually in the shoulder area. The clavicle was broken, complete separation there, and then she had a major head laceration in the back of her head. Like, it was probably about a 6 to 7 inch gash in the back of her head, just completely split open in the back of her head. I'm not quite sure how that happened from the car accident, but that was pretty bad. So we ended up having to get her to the hospital. She got staples in her head immediately to control the bleeding, and it was pretty gross, but it was a lot of blood. I love that blood. You guys know how much I love blood, so it was a fun call. She turned out to be okay. 73 years old, and those kind of injuries are really bad, but she seems to be doing pretty good now. Another call we had was a big house fire. For those of you who live in Utah, probably saw this on the news. This was quite a big house fire. It started with a propane tank. A guy was barbecuing, went to go switch out propane stuff, and something bad happened, and he ended up igniting the propane and just exploded, and his whole house went up in flames. He somehow, I don't know how he got out of there without any injuries, but he was able to escape. I don't know, maybe he knew something bad was going to happen. He ran before it exploded. I don't know. I never ended up getting to talk to him. But this was a massive fire. It was the whole house. I'm not sure if the entire house was completely a loss, but the estimated damage was about $300,000 of damage to the house. What was crazy though is while during this fire, their daughter drives up to the house. She was out when this happened, and she came home and she just drove into the fire scene, just went crazy, and she drove so fast and she ended up crashing into one of our fire engines, and like she was just completely in shock. I don't know what happened, but that was pretty crazy. And so they had to take care of her and everything. But the house, that was an intense fire. That thing was huge. We could see the header coming up, probably about 5 miles away from the fire. Like it was a bad, pretty good fire. So, anyways, the next call I want to talk about was a 70-year-old male having a PE, which is a pulmonary embolism, which is very, very deadly. Very, very deadly. This patient was an unstable, what we call unstable AFib, and this patient has a really bad heart and has some clots in their lungs. And so this patient had already had a clot in his lung before, and now he's got 3 clots in his lung, and those kill. Those can kill immediately, very, very quickly. And so we had to take him to the hospital. Very, very dangerous. This guy ended up having going into extreme uncontrolled AFibs, and so he ended up having to get shocked. They ended up shocking him for 200 joules 3 times. You guys see on the TV where they're like clear, and then they rub the little things, they shock him. It's just kind of like that, but well, it's a little bit different. But yeah, we ended up shocking him 3 times with 200 joules of energy, and that still couldn't get him. And so we ended up putting him on a medication drip to control his AFib enough. And it was pretty scary stuff, but he's totally fine. He's alive, as far as I know, and we did the right thing. Everything's good, and gave him a lot of pain medication for his intense pain with the pulmonary embolisms. Those are dangerous, very, very dangerous, but everything turned out to be okay in the end. So so there's that call. The next call I want to talk about is a 90-year-old that fell, and it was bad. She was getting transported over from a chair to her bed, and she was dropped. I think she was 91 years old, and ended up breaking her leg. She had a complete tib-fib break. So the lower leg of your body's got the bottom portion of your leg has 2 bones, and both of those bones completely broke. It was an angulated fracture, and completely separated. And we show up, and this happened on Sunday, and the place that she's staying did not call us until Tuesday. And so she sat for 2 days with an broken leg, complete separation of 2 bones, and we show up, and there's just massive bleeding. Her leg is completely swollen, completely purple and blue from the bruising. It was so bad. It was absolutely horrible. I felt so bad for her. But anyways, we ended up taking her to the hospital, gave her some pain medication, gave her, I think she requested to have morphine, and so we gave her morphine for that. And I mean, she sat there for 2 days in so much pain without anybody giving her any help or to medical attention. It was really, really sad, but we ended up taking her to the hospital, and they took really good care of her at the hospital. And I ended up going, and while I was transporting another patient, I ended up stopping by to see her, and she's doing a lot better now. So, but oh my gosh, I couldn't believe how bad that looked when I saw her leg, just purple and blue and just completely disangulated, and it looks so gross. Anyways, so last call I really quickly want to share about, there was a canyon rescue. Our firefighters ended up having to go hike up a canyon and try and rescue a guy. A guy was trying to jump rocks at the very top of the mountain, across the river, ended up slipping, falling, and breaking his ankle. And so they had to go up and try and find him. So it turned into a huge search and rescue thing, which took about 5 hours to complete. They ended up finding the guy, and he was okay. I mean, he just had the broken ankle. They had to fly him out, and they ended up flying our firefighters down because it was so high up the mountain, and it was so late at night. This started about like 7 o'clock in the evening, and our firefighters didn't get home until probably around 1 or 2 o'clock at night. Like, it was a long call, and so they were all exhausted climbing up a mountain with all their gear and stuff that they had to go do search and rescue for. So the patient was okay. You know, they took him to the hospital, and just a broken ankle, some minor cuts and bruises and stuff, but it was pretty cool. So I hope you guys enjoyed these stories. There was quite a bit of stories. If you guys want more details about any of these stories, feel free to ask in the comments below. Make sure you leave a like if you haven't already. Also, if you guys enjoy the Cosplay Fight Clubs, come join us on our Twitch live stream. Thank you so much for watching. I love you guys. You guys have been awesome. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.
That's what they call me. Promise that you never be lonely.
Neverland is home to lost boys like me, and lost boys like me are free. Neverland is home to lost boys like me, and lost boys like me are free.